Running a hotel was never just a job for me. It was everything. It was my passion, my purpose. I'm Stephanie, and this hotel was my pride and joy, until he came into my life. He was hard to ignore. A young man, impeccably dressed in a sharp suit, always glued to his high-end smartphone. When he checked in, he greeted me with a dazzling smile, and for the first time in a while, I felt something stir inside me. "Good evening, I'm Walter," he said, his voice smooth, almost hypnotic. "I'll be here for a few nights. Is there anything interesting to do around here?" I hadn't expected him to be so charming, but I couldn't help myself. I smiled back, intrigued by his easy confidence. "Well, Walter, the city has a lot to offer. It really depends on what you're into," I replied as I handed him his room key. Our conversation was brief, but there was something about him, his genuine interest, maybe, or the way he listened so attentively, that left an impression. His stay was short, but before he left me a note. It simply said, "Enjoyed our chat, how about we continue it over dinner?" I hesitated. I wasn't used to mixing my professional life with personal stuff, but there was something compelling about him. I agreed. We met at a cozy little local restaurant, one of those places where the air smells like home, and the sounds of soft conversations and clinking glasses make everything feel warm and intimate. "You know this place well, don't you, Stephanie?" Walter remarked with a smile as we sat down. I chuckled, feeling more relaxed than I had in ages. "I guess you could say I've spent some time here," I said, a playful glint in my eyes. The dinner flew by in no time, and we talked about everything, from small everyday things to deep, life-changing experiences. Walter was open, sharing stories of his travels and business ventures. When the conversation turned to me, I found myself sharing more than I usually would. I told him about losing my parents, how it had just been me and my sister Amy against the world since I was 23. "That's a lot to carry on your shoulders, Stephanie. You must be really strong," he said, looking at me with admiration, and something deeper that I couldn't quite place. I shrugged, feeling a bit uncomfortable with the compliment. "We all deal with what we're given. Amy has always been my priority. Our parents left us something small, and I've been careful with it, trying to make it grow," I explained. He nodded thoughtfully. "That's impressive. You've got a good head on your shoulders." As the evening wore on, I realized I had been laughing more than I had in months, but whenever I tried to ask about his family, he would quickly steer the conversation elsewhere. "My folks and I don't get along. Let's just say they have their views, and I have mine," he said, his face momentarily shadowed before he brightened again. "We all have our stories, don't we?" The night was over before I knew it, and I didn't want it to end. There was something about Walter that made me feel alive in a way I hadn't in years. Life with him was like a whirlwind, each day full of new adventures and shared laughter. He had a way of making the most ordinary moments feel special, turning simple dinners into memories I would cherish. One evening, as we sat in our favorite cafe, the dim lighting casting a soft glow over the table, I couldn't help but voice my thoughts. "Walter, I still can't believe how fast everything is moving," I said, my voice a mix of excitement and uncertainty. He reached across the table, taking my hand in his. "Stephanie, when something feels right, why wait? I've never been more certain about anything," he said, his eyes locking onto mine with intensity that sent a shiver down my spine. "I know, but everything's happening so fast, it's overwhelming," I admitted, my emotions spilling out. He squeezed my hand, his voice calm and reassuring. "I get it, but trust me, Stephanie, I'm in this for the long haul. I want to build a life with you, a future." His words sent a thrill through me, especially when he started talking about our wedding day. He had such a clear vision for it, an unforgettable celebration that would be talked about for years to come. "Can you picture it, Stephanie?" he said, his eyes alight with excitement. "A ceremony like no other. It's going to be perfect." His enthusiasm made my heart race, and when he mentioned the honeymoon, my curiosity got the better of me. "You mentioned something about the most luxurious hotel in the world," I said, a hint of hesitation in my voice. His smile widened. "Yes, it's part of the plan. I need you to trust me. Your savings for the wedding, my funds for the honeymoon, and our future home, it will all fall into place." Though every rational part of me wanted to be cautious, the way he looked at me with such love and certainty made it hard to say no. "Okay, Walter, let's do it. Let's make this wedding unforgettable." As the weeks passed, wedding plans consumed us. Walter was a force of nature, taking charge of every detail with precision. Watching him pour so much passion into our future made me fall even deeper in love with him. "You're amazing, Walter. I don't know how to thank you for all of this," I said one evening, as we went over the plans. He pulled me into a hug, his warmth wrapping around me. "Seeing you happy is all the thanks I need," he whispered. "This wedding is just the beginning. Our life together is going to be even more beautiful." Still, there were moments of doubt, quiet whispers in the back of my mind. Was this all moving too fast? Was I getting swept up in the romance of it all? But whenever those thoughts came, Walter's reassuring words would calm me, anchoring me in the belief that this was the right thing. With the wedding drawing near, I knew I needed my sister, Amy, by my side. After all, it had always been the two of us against the world. Her opinion mattered now more than ever. I called her, hoping she could take a break from the cafe she ran. "Hey, Amy, think you can trade coffee beans for bridal gowns today?" I joked, hoping to lighten her mood. Her laughter, warm and familiar, filled the line. "For you, sis, I'd give up anything. Give me an hour to wrap things up here, and I'm yours." We met at a bridal shop filled with the softest silks and dreamlike gowns. I tried on several dresses, but when I stepped out in the one that felt just right, Amy's reaction was immediate. "That's the one, Stephanie. It's perfect," she exclaimed, her eyes wide with excitement. I looked at myself in the mirror, and for the first time, I felt like a real bride. "You think so?" "Absolutely," she said, grinning ear to ear. "You look stunning." Her approval meant the world to me. It felt like everything was falling into place, but something was off. There was a moment, a fleeting one, when Amy's smile didn't quite reach her eyes. It passed so quickly that I almost didn't notice. After we left the shop, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Amy seemed distracted, her usual carefree demeanor replaced by moments of unease. I didn't want to believe it, but the nagging thought remained. That evening, I tried to push it out of my mind, but the next day, everything changed. Walter had left his phone on the counter, buzzing with messages. My curiosity got the best of me, and when I picked it up, I found that there was no password. I opened it, not knowing what I would find. What I read shattered me. Walter and Amy had been having an affair. Worse, they had been planning to ruin me. I couldn't believe what I was reading. Amy's message was clear. "Can't believe we pulled this off. She's such a fool, falling for every lie. Now that I'm pregnant, we can finally be together." I felt the room spin as I read Walter's reply. "She's just a naive cash cow. Can't wait to get rid of her and start our real life." Tears blurred my vision as I sat frozen, the phone heavy in my hands. Betrayal, anger, disbelief, all mixed together, and I felt a cold resolve settle in. They thought they could play me, but they were wrong. I was going to make them regret this. When Walter walked in, acting as though everything was normal, I kept my composure. I greeted him with a smile, masking the fury inside. But in that moment, I knew I was no longer the naive fiancée. I was the woman who would make them both pay for what they had done. I walked the tightrope of deceit with precision. Walter's phone was always out of sight, his conversations more guarded, as if he knew I was watching. But it didn't matter. I had seen enough. I knew the truth. I was no longer a naive bride-to-be. I was a woman who had learned to protect herself. The morning of the wedding arrived bright and clear, a picture-perfect day for a perfect disaster. I stood in front of the mirror, the reflection of a calm bride staring back at me. But behind the veil and makeup, I was a woman with a plan, a woman ready to make everything right, even if that meant exposing everything I had been blind to. "Amy's running late, huh?" Walter remarked as he adjusted his tie. I met his eyes in the mirror. "Yes," I said simply, ready to let the day unfold. Walter smiled, oblivious to the storm that was about to hit. "Stephanie promised she wouldn't miss this for anything in the world. It's unthinkable for her not to be here." I turned to face him, offering him a smile that looked perfect, but inside, my heart was bracing for the upheaval to come. "Yes, Walter, a new beginning," I said softly. The ceremony was beginning, and I could feel the weight of it all. The aisle stretched before me, and with each step, I knew that this day was not going to go as anyone expected. The guests, happy and unaware, watched as I walked toward the man who had betrayed me. I could almost hear the clock ticking down to the moment when everything would come crashing down. When I stood next to Walter, my heart was racing. The vows were exchanged, the promises made, but I could see how empty they were. Just as I was about to lose myself in the chaos, the unthinkable happened. Amy appeared, dressed in a wedding gown that mirrored mine. She marched down the aisle with a determination that sent chills down my spine. Her words cut through the silence like a knife. "Step aside, Stephanie. It's me who truly belongs here. Walter loves me, and this child I carry is his," she announced loudly. The room went silent, shocked. I expected the chaos to tear me apart, but to my surprise, I stayed calm. Walter's reaction only confirmed what I had feared all along. He burst into laughter, his face glowing with satisfaction. "Well said, Amy," he said, looking at me with disdain. "You played your part well, Stephanie, but now it's Amy's turn." His voice was cruel, and my world seemed to spin, but I didn't let it show. I looked at him and Amy, keeping my composure. "Of course, I wouldn't want to miss the spectacle, especially since I funded it," I said coolly. The room was in an uproar, guests whispering and staring at me in disbelief. Amy and Walter exchanged confused glances, not knowing how to react to my calm, but I remained still, watching their lives fall apart as they stood there, not understanding what was coming next. Walter, now growing uneasy, asked, "What's your deal, Stephanie? Why are you so calm?" I smiled, unfazed. "No angle, Walter, I'm just enjoying the fruits of my labor. Please, continue. I'm eager to see how this unfolds." The ceremony resumed, but the air had changed. Guests looked on in shock as Walter and Amy exchanged vows, their words hollow, fake. I felt no joy in seeing them tear each other down. This was just the beginning. Just as I thought the day couldn't get any worse, the doors of the church flew open, and a woman stormed in. Her presence was commanding, and the silence that followed was deafening. She was older than Walter, clearly upset, her eyes blazing with anger. "Stop this wedding," she shouted, her voice filled with authority. Walter turned white as a ghost. "Helen, what are you doing here?" he stammered, his confident facade collapsing in an instant. Helen, his legal wife, walked toward the altar, and the truth she revealed was a shock to everyone, especially to Amy. "I'm here to stop this charade," she said, turning to face me. "Stephanie, you deserve to know the truth." Helen's words echoed through the church. "Walter is a fraud. He's drowning in debt, his business ventures have failed, and he's been using you all to climb out of his financial hole. And Amy, well, you're just another piece in his scheme." The room erupted into chaos. Guests shouted, gasped, and stood in shock. Walter's attempts to speak were drowned out. I stood, shaking, but my voice rang out loud and clear. "There's more," I said, silencing the room once again. I had hired a private investigator to confirm my suspicions about Walter. Not only is Walter already married and broke, but he has a daughter he's never supported, I added, my words a hammer on the fragile truth he had built. Amy's face crumpled as she heard the truth. "Walter, tell me it's not true," she cried out, her voice breaking. Walter said nothing. His world had fallen apart, and he knew there was no way out, but the final blow was yet to come. As the crowd absorbed the shocking revelations, Walter's parents walked into the room. I had tipped them off about their son's deceit, and now they were here to see him exposed. His father, stern and always composed, stepped forward with anger in his eyes. "Walter, you are no son of mine," he declared. "You have disgraced our family. You're cut off. No more money, no more connections. You're done." The room fell into a heavy silence. I watched, a strange sense of satisfaction slowly spreading through me. This was the end of Walter and Amy's story. I had taken back control. In the days that followed, the legal battles began. Walter, now trapped by his lies, faced both Helen and me in court. My lawyer was resolute. "You've shattered trust, exploited kindness, and caused unimaginable damage," he said, pushing for compensation. The judge's gavel came down, and the words that followed offered me a sense of relief. The court finds in favor of the plaintiff. The defendant is ordered to pay $90,000 in damages for emotional distress and financial losses. As I left the courtroom, a weight was lifted from my shoulders, but the journey to heal wasn't over. Walter's troubles didn't end with the court's decision. Helen, determined to seek reparation for his deceit, launched her own legal battle. Meanwhile, Amy, now abandoned and pregnant, was left to face the consequences of her actions alone. One day, Amy came to me, tearful and broken. "Stephanie, I know I have no right to ask for your forgiveness, but I don't know what to do." I looked at her, the sister I had once loved so deeply, but now, I knew that the damage was done. "Amy, You were my family, but what you did, it's not something I can simply forget or forgive. You made your choice, and now you have to walk your path, just like I'm walking mine." She left, her tearful face a silent reminder of how everything had changed. Life moved on, and I focused on rebuilding what had been broken. The pain of betrayal still lingered, but through it, I found strength. I had loved, lost, trusted, and been betrayed, but I survived, and as I moved forward, I realized that the most important journey was the one unfolding inside me, a journey to heal, to rediscover who I was, and to learn to trust again.